Now, the controversy surrounding Kenya's efforts to transform transport in East Africa by building a multi-billion shilling standard gauge railway has refused to go away. Issues continue to be raised concerning the Chinese-funded project. One of the key issues that have been raised is the cost of the project. A comparative analysis of the Kenyan projects with the similar ones across the region raises questions over the Kenyan one, which will cost the taxpayer, according to reports, whopping 1.3 trillion Kenyan shillings. Another key area of concern has been transparency. The cost of the Kenyan project has varied. It was initially said to cost 220 billion shillings before the figure changed to 400 billion shillings. Then it was finally settled on 1.3 trillion shillings. The Transport Ministry has been at pains to explain the escalation in the cost. The tendering process that saw Chinese firm China Road and Bridge Corporation being awarded the tender has also been brought into sharp focus following a series of letters between the offices of the Attorney General and that of the Public Procurement Oversight Authority. The capacity of the China Road and Bridge Corporation to handle such a big project has also been questioned. Let's now bring in the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, Nduvu Moli, to just shed some more light on this particular project. Welcome to our studio, sir.
Thank you very much.
That figure of 1.3 trillion has raised many questions from Kenyans. You don't agree with it, with the report?
There's no figure like 1.3 trillion. The cost of this project is 327 billion shillings. We have $2.8 billion in terms of infrastructure, $1.2 billion for rolling stock. That gives us $3.8 billion multiplied by 87 shillings, 327 billion shillings, period. That's the cost of the project.
So how does it come to 1.3 trillion?
I honestly don't know, Ben. I think those who have been talking about the figures need to come and substantiate their figures. The contracts that have been signed are for a total of 327 million. That's the position.
From the reports we have seen from documents from government is that there have been an escalation. There have been figures have varied. When the government announced the commencement of this project, it was 220 billion. Then it came to 400 billion. Then now the figures that you...
No, the actual position is that no figures have actually varied. Probably different reports have reached the public, but the details in the contract are as what I've told you, that we have a 327 billion shilling project. That's for the line between Nairobi and Mombasa. It includes the infrastructure, rolling stock, and various other ancillary facilities.
Can you give us a breakdown of the project from Mombasa to the entire region, how much it will cost?
Well, we have done our obviously we now have a fixed cost from between Nairobi and Mombasa. What is going on now is that there are further studies going on between Nairobi and Malaba. Uganda are also doing work between Malaba and Kampala, and I believe there's work also going on between Kampala and Kigali. Now obviously those are sovereign states. They're working on their particular parts of the project. We have not completed the Malaba-Nairobi section, and once we complete our feasibility and designs on that, then we'll be able to get exact costs.
So you're saying that we do not have a definitive figure for that. Is that figure the one that is being rounded off to 1.3 trillion?
Absolutely not, because if you look at the distance between Nairobi and Mombasa giving us about 327 billion, there's no way that the project would reach 1.3 trillion up to Malaba. That would definitely not make sense.
So with all these questions, Kenyans, being concerned about the cost of the project, what can you tell Kenyans? Kenyans are worried that this is another project which they're going to pay over the odds to fund another exaggerated piece of infrastructure.
I think we've had a lot of propaganda about the costing of the project. I'm giving you the facts as they are. 327 billion shillings. We have done a lot of work with regard to the costing, the unit cost. We have developed a project that I believe is value for money and that will deliver value for Kenya and for the region.
Tell us about the tendering process, which is another issue that has brought questions. It is on a government-to-government kind of dealing.
Yes.
How did we at that?
I think the argument that has been raised is that there's been a process of single sourcing. Now, if we look at the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, Section 6.1 is very clear that where there are negotiated grants or loans, then those kind of projects are exempted from the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. The reason is that those governments that lend money in terms of grants or loans require that we actually follow procedures related to their government. That's quite reasonable, because that's their money that they're either lending or granting. They want to be sure that it is spent in the right way and under their procedures. So that's why that particular part of the Act specifies that where there are negotiated grants or loans, they're exempted. So the process we've followed, therefore, is that was specified by the government of China in terms of identifying the contractor. So there's been no flouting of the law with regard to the identification of the contractor.
There are reports that there was a tender that was before the one that was given to the Chinese government, but it was cancelled before this one, and that is what's bringing issues.
No, not at all. There's never been a tender for the construction of the railway line. What has been there previously was a tender for the design of the railway, but that particular process was abandoned when we went into the government-to-government process, where the Chinese government then proposed that we can borrow from them to actually construct the project.
Mr. Pierce, there have also been questions about China Road and Bridge Corporation's capacity to house a project of such massive capacity like this standard gauge railway. What is the government's position on that?
First of all, before we engaged China Road and Bridge, the government requested the government of China to confirm China Road and Bridge's capacity to develop this project. That came back in the affirmative. Following that, there was a proper due diligence exercise led by the Ministry of Transport. We had the National Treasury with us, the Attorney General's Chambers, and the Kenya Railways Corporation, who undertook a physical due diligence of the capacity of China Road and Bridge in terms of their technical capacity, legal capacity, financial capacity, and human resource capacity. So we visited various sites. China Road and Bridge is currently working on several hundred kilometers of high-speed rail in China. We visited various sites where they are constructing, and following that due diligence exercise, again, it became clear
very quickly
that the technical capacity.
Before we went up, very quickly, it is said that the CRBC does not have a certificate of railway engineering, and that is what is being questioned.
No, that is not true. They cannot not have one. They're actually constructing railways in China.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pierce. Thank you for joining us in the studio.